I am so happy to be with you all today and share the wonderful data that has come in very quickly and surprisingly at the beginning of a new year from all of our VSN partner schools. And that's what we're going to have our focus on today. But before we do that, we want to take a look at this timeline and kind of revisit where we first launched this and where we are now at this point halfway in the year. And you'll see we started out with the Summer Institute, a wonderful, wonderful 2-day event at the Friday Institute with a lot of our partner schools. And then in the early fall, we launched the Virtual Schools Network, and we had 8 schools from across North Carolina join us on this new adventure and new journey for the year. In September, we offered a webinar on connecting with families. And then in November, our partners at NC Virtual led a webinar on the NECs. All of the resources, all of the recordings from these webinars can be found in the VSN Hub, which all of our members have access to. In December, we ended up 2022 with a fantastic webinar led by Jacqueline Stevens on engagement. Again, lots of strategies, lots of resources were provided, uploaded into the hub for all of our participants to go back and take a look at and use as needed. And then finally, we started off January of this year with our request for our member schools to complete a Virtual Schools Network needs assessment. And this needs assessment was conducted, the data has been analyzed, and what I'm going to do today is share the findings that have come out of this needs assessment. If you look in the chat, I've popped a link in so that you can see all of the data that was collected from across the VSN schools. You will see that there are some slides that I've added so you can actually see the detailed graphics, and I'll share those a little bit more in my talk in a minute. And not only does it include the quantitative data that we collected, but the qualitative data, the responses that participants shared with us about what they would like to see offered as future resources and strategies in not only our monthly webinars, but thinking to the future about the 2023 Summer Institute. So we're going to take all this information so that we can continue to build upon our resources and professional development, and it is all coming directly from information provided by you. Again, it's 2023. Happy New Year, and we are going to bring on the new year with some opportunities to reflect on what's already happened in the past so that we can plan successfully for the future. And so at this time, we're going to dig in and really take a look at the data that has been provided through our needs assessment. And again, I've shared that link for you so you can see it in detail. We heard from 88% of our virtual network schools. We have participation from 71 people across the network. And of those 71, 82 were teachers. And you can see our breakdown here of how many were elementary, how many were middle school, and how many were high school. And it looks like roughly half of our participants are teaching middle school classes. What do you teach? Large percentages of math and science teachers. And then, of course, we had some input from English, language arts, history or social studies, and then some of our electives. Here's some good high-level data that we felt was important to highlight that came out of the assessment. And 93% of educators that responded agree that teaching in the virtual school is more student-centered and far more interactive because it's integrated into instruction. 90% of educators stated that their school uses the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey to determine professional development topics. And we dug a little bit further on in the needs assessment to ask about some specific topic areas that we had heard our VSN partners talk about early on when we first brought the group together, and again in the Summer Institute for 2022. So we wanted to dig a little more, dig a little deeper, and bring to the surface those things that participants felt like they really needed the most support on. 100% of the respondents of the survey agreed that in their school, lesson plans were aligned to content standards and student technology standards. 96% of respondents agreed that educators within their school, themselves and their colleagues, were strongly committed to virtual learning for all students. 93% agreed that students in their virtual school wanted to be there. They were there because they wanted to be. It was not a situation that was forced upon them. And 98% of respondents agreed that in their school, everyone modeled effective uses of technology in teaching and learning. We ask about plans of communication. One of the sessions that was offered during the Summer Institute talked about social media. Another session talked about family engagement. We did a whole webinar back in September about connecting with families and family engagement. And you can see from this data, roughly 83% of respondents said that their school had a good or very good plan in place for how to best communicate with parents. Communicating with the community was something else that came about in our previous conversations and previous discussions. And in asking about this information on the needs assessment, we had roughly 75%, 3/4 of our respondents say that they had either a good or a very good plan in place within their school for assistance with connecting with the community. This particular set of data talked about professional development. We've often asked, in many of the webinars we've offered, we asked back in the Summer Institute, where were your critical needs? Where do you need the most assistance and the most help right now? And especially, this is especially important because all of our schools are at different places, different grade levels, have different school structure in terms of their day, different schedules for their teachers coming in and out. But it was a very high percentage of respondents, and this was from all 71, both administrators and teachers, said, we need a lot of help on student engagement. And so one of the things I wanted to be sure to highlight with this particular data point is in the VSN Hub, there is the webinar I mentioned earlier that Jackie ran in December that was full of strategies, resources, activities that teachers and principals alike could utilize in their schools to help improve student engagement. Hearing again from our respondents that this is a key concern, what it says to us is we need to think very strongly about not only maybe repeating the information that was shared in that webinar, but we need to take that information a step further and dig even deeper. Perhaps this is even a focus area we need to concentrate on when our virtual schools network schools attend the Summer Institute. This needs to be a central focus because it tends to be a major point of concern. The second thing that came about, obviously, was technology use in the classroom. And so what it said to me in looking at this data is as we are sharing these strategies and resources with you all, instead of just focusing on this is a tech tool, we need to align more of what we are presenting as far as strategies and resources through the form of modeling different technology tools that could be utilized in the classroom setting and across the school. And then the third top focus area was personalized learning. Personalized learning is something that is being talked about consistently across educational forums in the state. It's being focused on by many of our schools and many of our districts as to how to dig in and better reach our students, not only where they are, but in a personalized way, move them forward, whether it is with personalized lesson plans, whether it is using project-based learning in the classroom, which also came up in the qualitative data that came about from our participants. So we know that that is a top priority and one that we will be sure to focus on in our future opportunities. Two of the lesser areas, but still ones that I consider highly important, was data literacy and how to have data conversations. We're extracting a lot of data now, not only just from our testing, but in our classroom assessments. And so having conversations with our teachers about how to use data to best work with students, particularly as we align it to personalized learning, to help them have higher achievement levels. And then the last one was focusing on grade level and content standards. What you said in the data revealed quite a bit to us. And I want to spend just a few minutes pulling out some specifics that came out of the qualitative open-ended responses that we ask of you. What we heard is you need support and collaboration, personalized learning, teaching math successfully. If you think back about that data point that showed the subject areas, math was our highest number of respondents that we received in the needs assessment, and then assessments themselves, having some kind of support around the area of assessments. We heard that you wanted more online resources, virtual labs, data literacy came up, and then student-centered activities. Increasing engagement. Again, that engagement piece is mentioned multiple times in this slide, and it came up heavily throughout the data that our schools need help with various levels of engagement, student engagement being the number one piece. How to turn data into actionable steps, that and data literacy align and go hand in hand. Parent engagement, student engagement, rubrics for students, how to create them, and then how to use them within lessons that our teachers are teaching. PBL or project-based learning. Community outreach came up several times, and then social media as well. I think that ties back directly to those communication plans that we ask about, the communication plan for parents, the communication plan for students. What resources could we provide for our virtual schools to help them get strong messages out, not only about who they are, what their story is, but also the successes that are happening in these virtual environments. So what are you going to do with all of this data? Again, I popped into the chat early on a link that gives you access to the information that we collected throughout the questions that we asked of our participants. And we want to ask you to take a moment, pause, and look back. Think back to when school started. Half of the year has now gone by. What has been successful? What has not been successful? Where do you as a professional need to grow? Where do you as a professional need to work on collaborating with colleagues to ensure that folks are talking, are partnering to do what is best to help students in these schools? Inventorying your critical needs, continuing to have that list going of these are the things that I know I need the most help in. I find that this information is very helpful if you're with your PLC or with your grade level team, or you're with your school leadership team and you're having a meeting, continuing to bring up what are those things we need the most help on. Part of this network is reaching out and asking for help. We are bringing you things as we collect data and know that you need more information, but you also need to be sure to contact us. Feel free to let us know, hey, guys, I need help in this specific area, so that someone can be in touch, excuse me, and follow up and provide you some resources with that. And then finding an accountability buddy. Creating an action plan for yourself, or if you're an administrator in this session, thinking about action plans for your staff. Having accountability buddies is very helpful to continuously check in to see, am I meeting the goals I have put in place for myself? And this is about your professional development and your professional growth as a virtual school educator. Something to help you with this. I think all of us have heard of glows and grows. I learned something interesting from my colleague the other week when they said, hey, have you thought about throws and knows? So when you work on glows, these are the things you're doing really well. It's really working with your kids. It's successful in the classroom. So how do you want to keep doing that so that you know students are hitting the mark? Where to grow? What are those areas that you know you need to work more on in order to help your students become successful? I popped a QR code up on the screen, and with that you can go to an action plan, and I believe Jackie popped a link in there that you can make a copy of this action plan in Google Docs. This was created just for you, so it aligns to the glows, the grows, the throws, and the knows. So we're looking at what's successful. We're looking at where we need to grow. And then in the very same vein, we're thinking about, oh my gosh, what are those lessons? Or what are those activities that I tried out with the kids and it did not work? I do not want to repeat that same mistake twice. I need to virtually crumple up that piece and throw it in the trash can, because I know it's not going to work if I've already tried it a couple of times and there wasn't success. And then document what you've learned from that. What do you now know that you want to build on for a future lesson or a future activity or a future resource, so that hopefully it can become a future glow? Revisiting this plan with an accountability buddy. I know that when I was still in the classroom, using these personal professional plans helped me consistently reflect on what I was doing that was good and what I was doing that needed a lot of work. And having a partner in the school, whether it's a colleague that's teaching in your subject area, your grade level, if it's an administrator, having that outside person look at what you're doing and how you're doing it with a different lens, and providing that constructive criticism and feedback can really be helpful to us as educators. I know it's always been helpful for me, even in the work that I do now, and I will continue to use that process because I do know, again, it helps me grow and consistently learn. So what are we going to do with this data? And by we, I mean the Virtual Schools Network, the people that have come together to work hard to support our partner schools across the state. Just like you, we're going to take a moment, we're going to pause, and we're going to look back. And we're going to inventory the critical needs that have been shared with us in the Virtual School Network Needs Assessment. This information is extremely important to the future work that we are offering our network partners in the coming months, especially as we lead up to our Summer Institute in June. And then that brings us to, we're going to work to design and develop a teams-based Summer Institute 2023 that addresses your concerns and your needs. We want our teams from our virtual network schools to walk away from the Summer Institute with a plan, with a collaborative piece of detailed work that they're going to be able to take back to their colleagues that aren't able to come to the Summer Institute and put it into the 2023-2024 school year. A lot of data, a lot of information. We so appreciate the quick turnaround of all of our schools and sharing this with their staff and having them complete it. I felt so positive about 71 responses within 1 week after we came back from a holiday. So we appreciate this information. We're going to act on this information and want to ensure you that all of the future offerings that we have will be directly aligned to the data that we have pulled from this needs assessment. So at this time, I'm going to offer up any opportunities for questions. And then after that, I'm going to turn it over for a second to Jackie.
I just want to also highlight thank you for kind of unpacking some of that data. We're hearing a lot of this um, from many of the folks that we've spoken to in our one-on-ones and as well before the holidays. So we're really trying to take this feedback, and we encourage you to take the needs assessment and sit down with your staff. Does this also sound like you? Does this not sound like you? Who, what schools can you identify to maybe connect with that are also having some of those similar kind of challenges, or someone that's been successful in their school and doing some of that? And we'll help you navigate that. But it is going to be a useful document, useful information, in addition to the glows and grows, throw and know. That is just a healthy practice in all your staff meetings after you talk about different things. So not only is it cute, we love that kind of thing in education where it's like it all rhymes, or but it sticks in your brain, and it can become a very healthy task for celebrating, because it's something that we lack a lot. We get jumped right to the next thing, right? It worked, awesome, what do we got to do now? So taking a moment to celebrate, but then acknowledging like where you're failing forward. Hey, it didn't work, let's throw that away, and let's now say, what do we know based on that fail, right? What do we know not to do? What did we learn from that thing we threw away, so we can continue to grow and glow? So thank you for sharing that kind of simple tool, but I think it can be unpacked in a lot of different ways and how it's used with teams. So thank you, Emmy. I just want to share those 2 cents.
Thanks.